"You don't deserve to be here," the woman hissed, her manicured finger pointing at the young black boy in seat 3A. Her words dripped with a venom that froze the entire first-class cabin. "People like you shouldn't even be allowed in this section." Hello everyone, and welcome back to Life in Stories, where we believe that real class isn't about money or titles. It's about how you treat people when you think no one's watching. Today's story will make you angry, proud, and maybe even emotional, because what happened on Flight 872 from Atlanta to Los Angeles proves that character can't be bought, dignity can't be stolen, and sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places. Meet Jordan Grant, a 13-year-old boy from the west side of Atlanta. If you passed him on the street, you might not look twice. Worn sneakers, a simple backpack, clothes from Target clearance racks. But those who knew Jordan saw something different. They saw a boy who helped elderly neighbors carry groceries up 4 flights of stairs without being asked. They saw a student who tutored younger kids in math during lunch breaks, instead of playing basketball with his friends. They saw quiet strength wrapped in humility. Jordan lived with his mother, Patricia, in a modest 2-bedroom apartment where the air conditioning worked half the time and the elevator never did. Patricia worked double shifts as a nurse at Grady Hospital, often coming home so exhausted she'd fall asleep in her scrubs. But she never missed Jordan's parent-teacher conferences, never forgot to leave encouraging notes in his lunchbox, and never let him forget that dignity was worth more than any designer label. What most people didn't know about Jordan was that his uncle, Samuel Grant, had taken a very different path. 20 years ago, Samuel had left that same neighborhood with nothing but a scholarship to Georgia Tech and a head full of dreams. Now, he was the founder and CEO of SkyTech Robotics, a company revolutionizing environmental research with eco-friendly drones. His face graced the covers of tech magazines, his net worth climbed into the hundreds of millions, but his phone's wallpaper was still a picture of him and Jordan fishing at their favorite spot on Lake Lanier. Samuel had offered many times to move Patricia and Jordan to a bigger house, to pay for private school, to give them what he called the easy life. But Patricia always refused. "My boy needs to know the value of hard work," she'd say. "He needs to earn his place in this world, not have it handed to him." That philosophy had shaped Jordan into someone special. While his classmates flaunted fake designer bags and talked about followers on social media, Jordan spent his time reading books about aerospace engineering, dreaming of following in his uncle's footsteps. He didn't need to announce his connection to Samuel Grant. He was too busy trying to become worthy of it. But this weekend was different. This weekend was special. Jordan's older brother, Daniel, was graduating from UCLA with honors in mechanical engineering. It had been a long journey. Daniel had worked 3 jobs to pay for college, studied until his eyes burned, and sacrificed every spring break to internships instead of parties. He was the first in their immediate family to graduate from college, and it meant everything. When Samuel heard about the graduation, he decided it was time for a grand gesture. Not to spoil Jordan, but to show him what was possible when you worked hard and stayed humble. He booked Jordan a first-class ticket to Los Angeles. "You've earned this, Jordy," Samuel had said over FaceTime, his eyes crinkling with pride. "Not because you're my nephew, but because of who you are. That report card full of A's, the way you help your mom without being asked, how you stand up for kids being bullied, even when it makes you a target, that's first-class character. It's time you experienced what that feels like." Jordan had stared at the e-ticket on his phone screen in disbelief. Seat 3A. First class. He'd only flown twice before, both times squeezed into middle seats in economy, his knees pressed against the seat in front of him. But this time would be different. The night before the flight, Jordan carefully packed his small backpack. He didn't have fancy luggage, just the same bag he used for school. Inside, he placed a few changes of clothes, his favorite book about the Wright brothers, and most importantly, a handwritten card for Daniel. He'd spent hours on that card, trying to find the words to tell his brother how proud he was, how much he looked up to him, how Daniel's success made him believe that maybe, just maybe, a kid from their neighborhood could touch the sky. Patricia drove him to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport before dawn, the city still sleeping under a blanket of streetlights. At the departure curb, she held his face in her hands, her eyes glistening. "You remember who you are," she said firmly. "You remember where you come from. And you remember that no seat on any plane changes your worth. You're first class because of what's in here." She tapped his chest, right over his heart. Jordan nodded, hugging her tight. "I'll make you proud, Mama." "Baby, you already do. Every single day." Inside the terminal, Jordan navigated security with the careful attention of someone who'd memorized every rule. Shoes off, laptop out, liquids in a bag, even though he didn't have any. He moved through the airport like he belonged there, because his mother had taught him that confidence wasn't about money, it was about knowing your worth. At gate B7, Jordan found a quiet corner and pulled out his book. Around him, business travelers typed furiously on laptops, families corralled excited children, and flight crews wheeled their bags with practiced efficiency. He was so absorbed in reading about Orville and Wilbur's first flight that he almost didn't notice her. Melissa Thornton commanded attention the way a storm commands the sky, not through beauty or grace, but through sheer force of presence. Her heels clicked against the terrazzo floor like a countdown to confrontation. Designer sunglasses perched on perfectly highlighted hair, a handbag worth more than Patricia's monthly salary swinging from her arm. She moved through the airport as if she owned it. Behind her, maintaining a careful distance, walked her daughter Chloe. Where Melissa was all sharp angles and loud confidence, Chloe was soft edges and quiet resignation. At 15, she'd already learned that the best way to survive her mother's moods was to become invisible. Earbuds in, eyes down, she followed in Melissa's wake like a shadow. Melissa was a real estate agent specializing in luxury properties in Highland Park, Dallas. She sold homes to oil executives and tech entrepreneurs, each commission padding her already substantial bank account. But no amount of money could fill the emptiness inside her, the constant need to prove she was better than everyone else, especially those she deemed beneath her. She'd bought herself a first-class ticket, of course. Melissa Thornton didn't fly any other way. But for Chloe, economy would do. "Builds character," she'd said when Chloe had quietly asked why they weren't sitting together. "Besides, first class is for people who've earned it. You're 15. What have you earned?" Chloe hadn't argued. She never did. She just nodded and added another small hurt to the collection she carried in her chest, right next to all the school plays her mother had missed, and all the birthday parties that were more about Melissa's image than Chloe's happiness. As they waited to board, Melissa's sharp eyes swept the gate area, categorizing passengers into those who mattered and those who didn't. Her gaze landed on Jordan, sitting quietly with his book, his boarding pass visible in his hand. She squinted, certain she was misreading. "First class? That couldn't be right. Probably stolen," she muttered under her breath, loud enough for Chloe to hear. "Mom," Chloe whispered, mortified. "Please don't." But Melissa was already constructing a narrative in her head. A young black boy, traveling alone, dressed in clothes from Walmart or wherever those people shopped. Clearly, he didn't belong in first class. Someone had made a mistake, or worse, he was trying to sneak into a section where he had no business being. Well, she put a stop to that. When boarding began, Jordan stood up carefully, bookmarking his page and sliding the book into his backpack. He'd memorized the boarding process from watching YouTube videos, not wanting to make any mistakes on his first-class flight. Group 1. That was him. He joined the short line, his ticket ready. Melissa watched with growing indignation. The audacity of this child, walking up to the first-class line as if he belonged there. She pushed past other passengers, her voice carrying across the gate area. "Excuse me," she called out, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. "Young man, I think you're in the wrong line. Economy boards after Group 4. Jordan turned, confused. "Ma'am?" "The first-class line," Melissa said slowly, as if talking to someone who didn't understand English. It's for first-class passengers only. Yes, ma'am, Jordan replied politely, holding up his boarding pass. I have a first-class ticket. Melissa's laugh was like breaking glass. I highly doubt that. Let me see. Before Jordan could respond, she snatched the boarding pass from his hand. Her eyes scanned it once, twice, 3 times, her face cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally rage. This has to be fake, she announced loudly. There's no way you could afford this. Did you steal someone's ticket? I should call security. The gate agent, a young woman named Keisha, intervened quickly. Ma'am, I can verify the ticket if there's a concern. She scanned Jordan's boarding pass, then smiled at him. You're all set, Mr. Grant. Seat 3A. Enjoy your flight. Jordan took his boarding pass back with a quiet, thank you, and walked down the jet bridge, his ears burning from the attention. Behind him he could hear Melissa's voice rising, demanding to speak to a supervisor, insisting that something wasn't right about that boy being in first class. Chloe wanted to disappear into the floor. She'd seen her mother do this before. Create scenes, make accusations, always targeting people who looked different from them. But this felt worse somehow. Maybe because the boy was close to her age. Maybe because he'd been so polite even when her mother was being horrible. Maybe because she was just tired of being embarrassed by association. On the plane, Jordan found seat 3A and carefully stowed his backpack in the overhead bin. The first-class cabin was everything he'd imagined and more. Wide leather seats that reclined into beds, individual entertainment screens, real glasses instead of plastic cups. He settled in, trying not to look like the excited kid he was, pulling out his book to calm his nerves. He'd just found his page when a shadow fell across his seat. Melissa stood in the aisle, her face twisted with indignation. Behind her, Chloe hung back, her face a mask of misery. You're in my daughter's seat, Melissa announced, loud enough for the entire first-class cabin to hear. Jordan looked up, confused. Ma'am, this is seat 3A. My ticket. I don't care what your ticket says, Melissa interrupted. My daughter deserves to sit here more than you do. You need to move to economy where you belong. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Several passengers looked up from their phones and newspapers, sensing drama. A businessman in 2B lowered his Wall Street Journal, his eyebrows raised. An elderly couple across the aisle exchanged worried glances. Jordan felt his chest tighten, but he heard his mother's voice in his head. Never let anyone make you feel small for knowing your worth. He took a deep breath and met Melissa's glare with calm eyes. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but this is my assigned seat. If you want your daughter to sit in first class, maybe you should have bought her a first-class ticket. The cabin went silent. Someone in row 4 suppressed a laugh. Melissa's face turned an alarming shade of red. How dare you speak to me like that? Do you have any idea who I am? I'm a platinum member on this airline. I fly first class every week. I spend more on flights in a month than your family probably makes in a year. Mom, please, Chloe whispered, tugging at her mother's designer jacket. Just stop. Let's go to our seats. But Melissa was beyond reason now. She'd been challenged by someone she saw as beneath her, and her fragile ego couldn't handle it. You people always want handouts, she spat, her voice dripping with venom. Always trying to take things you haven't earned. Well, I won't stand for it. You don't deserve to be here. First class is for successful people, important people, not for. She gestured dismissively at Jordan. Whatever you are. The elderly woman across the aisle gasped audibly. The businessman put down his newspaper entirely, his face dark with disapproval. Throughout the cabin, phones appeared, subtle but present, recording every word. Jordan felt tears prick at his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. He thought of Daniel, graduating with honors despite every obstacle. He thought of his mother, saving lives every day despite exhaustion. He thought of Uncle Samuel, building an empire from nothing but determination and brilliance. I am Jordan Grant, he said quietly but firmly. I'm a straight A student. I tutor kids in math for free. I help my neighbors. I read about airplanes because I want to be an engineer like my uncle. And I have a first-class ticket that was bought and paid for. That's who I am. Who are you besides someone trying to steal a seat from a 13-year-old? The cabin erupted. Someone started clapping. Others joined in. The businessman in 2B stood up. "Ma'am, I've heard enough," he said firmly. "This young man has shown more class in the last 2 minutes than you've shown in your entire performance. If anyone doesn't belong in first class, it's someone who treats other human beings this way." Melissa whirled on him. "Mind your own business. This doesn't concern you." "Actually it does," said the elderly woman. "When you attack a child with racist remarks in a public space, it concerns all of us." "Racist?" Melissa shrieked. "I'm not racist. I just think people should stay where they belong." "And where exactly do you think this young man belongs?" the elderly woman asked quietly. "Based on what? The color of his skin? His age? His clothes? Please enlighten us." Renee Alvarez, the lead flight attendant, had been watching from the galley, hoping the situation would resolve itself. But when she heard the unmistakable tone of racial prejudice, she moved swiftly down the aisle. "Ma'am," she said to Melissa, her voice professional but firm, "I need you to lower your voice and return to your seat immediately." Melissa turned on her like a viper. "Are you seriously taking his side? I'm a platinum member. I spend thousands of dollars with this airline. And you're going to let some kid who probably got this ticket through some diversity program sit here, while my daughter is in economy?" Renee's professionalism never wavered, but her eyes hardened. "Ma'am, this passenger has a valid first-class ticket. You're creating a disturbance and making discriminatory remarks. If you don't return to your seat immediately, I'll have to ask the captain to intervene." "Good," Melissa shouted. "Get the captain. I want to speak to someone with actual authority, not some flight attendant who clearly doesn't understand customer service." Renee nodded calmly and walked toward the cockpit. The cabin buzzed with tension. Chloe had shrunk against the bulkhead, tears streaming down her face, wishing she could disappear. Other passengers whispered among themselves, phones still recording, capturing every moment of Melissa's meltdown. Jordan sat perfectly still, his book closed in his lap, his hands folded. He looked younger than his 13 years in that moment, but also somehow older, a child forced to show more maturity than the adult attacking him. "You think you're smart, don't you?" Melissa hissed at him. "Sitting there all smug, pretending you belong here. But I know the truth. People like you always play the victim, always cry racism when you don't get your way. Well, it won't work on me." "Mom, stop." Chloe finally found her voice, stepping forward. "Just stop. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing me. He's just a kid trying to fly to see his family." Melissa turned on her daughter. "Don't you dare take his side. I'm doing this for you." "No, you're not." Chloe shot back, years of suppressed frustration finally boiling over. "You're doing this because you can't stand the idea that someone you think is beneath you might actually deserve something nice. Just like you do with everyone. The waiters you scream at, the store clerks you belittle, the gardeners you treat like they're invisible. I'm sick of it." The cabin door opened, and Captain Laura Jenkins stepped out. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun, and the kind of presence that commanded instant respect. Her uniform was crisp, her posture military straight, and her eyes swept the cabin with the practiced assessment of someone who'd handled every possible crisis at 30,000 feet. "I understand there's a situation here," she said, her voice calm but carrying an undertone of steel. "I'm Captain Jenkins. What seems to be the problem?" Melissa immediately launched into her performance, her voice taking on a wounded, victimized tone. "Captain, thank God you're here. This boy," she pointed at Jordan like he was evidence in a crime, "is in the wrong seat. He's being disrespectful and refusing to move. I'm a platinum member, and I simply asked if my daughter could have the seat she deserves, and he became aggressive." Captain Jenkins listened without expression, then turned to Jordan. "Young man, may I see your boarding pass, please?" Jordan handed it over wordlessly. The captain pulled out her tablet, scanned the barcode, and checked her manifest. "Jordan Grant, Seat 3A, first-class ticket purchased 3 days ago by Samuel Grant. Everything appears to be in order." She handed the boarding pass back to Jordan with a small smile. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Grant." Then she turned to Melissa. "And may I see your boarding pass, ma'am?" Melissa thrust it forward aggressively. "Seat 3B, first class, as you can see. I've been flying with this airline for 15 years. "And your daughter's boarding pass?" Melissa's jaw tightened. "She's in 18F. Economy." "But that's not the point." "Actually, that's exactly the point," Captain Jenkins interrupted smoothly. "You purchased an economy ticket for your daughter. This young man has a first-class ticket. There's no issue here except the one you're creating." "I want him moved," Melissa demanded. "I don't feel safe sitting next to him." Captain Jenkins raised an eyebrow. "You don't feel safe sitting next to a 13-year-old boy who's quietly reading a book?" "It's not about that," Melissa sputtered. "It's about, he doesn't, people like him." "People like him?" Captain Jenkins repeated slowly. "Would you care to elaborate on what you mean by people like him?" The cabin was dead silent. Every passenger, every crew member, was watching. Melissa realized she'd walked into a trap, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. "You know what I mean," she said defensively. "He clearly doesn't belong in first class. Look at him. Those clothes, that backpack. He probably got this ticket through some charity program or diversity quota. Real first-class passengers earn their seats." Captain Jenkins was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was dangerously soft. "Ma'am, I've been flying for 25 years. I've flown CEOs, celebrities, politicians, and ordinary families saving for years to afford one special flight. Do you know what I've learned? The price of your ticket doesn't determine your worth as a human being." She paused, letting that sink in. "This young man has a valid ticket. He's been nothing but polite despite your harassment. You, on the other hand, have disrupted this flight, made discriminatory remarks, and created a hostile environment for both passengers and crew. So here's what's going to happen." Melissa opened her mouth to protest, but Captain Jenkins held up a hand. "Option 1. You return to your seat immediately, remain silent for the duration of this flight, and we'll pretend this unfortunate incident never happened. Option 2. You continue this behavior, and I'll have you removed from this aircraft and placed on the no-fly list. Your choice." "You can't threaten me," Melissa shrieked. "I'll sue this airline. I'll have your job. Do you know who I am?" Captain Jenkins smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, ma'am. You're the passenger who just earned herself option 2. She turned to Renee. "Please radio ahead for security to meet us at the gate." "This is ridiculous," Melissa screamed. "All because of him." She pointed at Jordan again. "This is reverse discrimination. I'm being persecuted for being successful and white." "No, ma'am," Captain Jenkins said firmly. "You're facing consequences for being racist and disruptive. There's a difference." She turned to address the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this delay. We'll need to return to the gate to remove a disruptive passenger. We should be back underway shortly." A cheer went up from several passengers. The businessman in 2B called out, "Thank you, Captain. It's about time someone stood up to this kind of behavior." As the plane began moving back toward the gate, Melissa's demeanor shifted from anger to panic. "Wait, you can't be serious. I have a showing this afternoon. $1 million property. You can't kick me off this flight. You should have thought of that before you attacked a child." Captain Jenkins replied coolly. Chloe stepped forward, her face streaked with tears. Captain, I'm sorry for my mother's behavior. I'm so embarrassed. Will I have to get off too? Captain Jenkins's expression softened. How old are you, sweetheart? 15, Chloe whispered. Are you traveling with any other adults? Chloe shook her head. Just my mom. We're going to see my grandmother in Los Angeles. The captain considered this. You haven't done anything wrong. You're welcome to continue to your seat in economy if you'd like. She's a minor. Melissa interjected. She can't fly without me. Actually, Captain Jenkins said, at 15, she can fly as an unaccompanied minor if she chooses. It's her decision. All eyes turned to Chloe. She looked at her mother, then at Jordan, then back at the captain. For perhaps the first time in her life, she had the power to choose. I want to stay on the flight, she said quietly. My grandmother is expecting me. She's sick, and this might be. Her voice broke. This might be my last chance to see her. Melissa's face went white. Chloe, you can't be serious. You're choosing him over your own mother. I'm not choosing anyone, Mom, Chloe said, finding strength she didn't know she had. I'm choosing to do the right thing. I'm choosing not to miss saying goodbye to Grandma, because you couldn't control your hatred. The plane reached the gate. Through the windows, 3 security officers could be seen waiting on the jet bridge. Melissa grabbed her designer purse, her movements sharp and angry. Fine, she spat. But don't come crying to me when you need something. You're just as ungrateful as everyone else. She turned to Jordan one last time. This isn't over. I'll make sure everyone knows what really happened here. They already do, the elderly woman said quietly. We all witnessed it. We all recorded it. The whole world is going to know exactly what happened here. As security escorted Melissa off the plane, her threats and complaints fading down the jet bridge, the cabin erupted in applause. Jordan sat frozen, overwhelmed by the support of strangers. Captain Jenkins knelt beside his seat. You okay, Mr. Grant? Jordan nodded, then found his voice. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for standing up for me. I didn't stand up for you, she said gently. I stood up for what's right. There's a difference. You stood up for yourself with more grace and dignity than most adults could manage. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve to be exactly where you are. She stood and addressed Chloe, who was still standing in the aisle, looking lost. Miss Thornton, would you like to take your mother's seat in first class? I think we can make that happen. Chloe's eyes widened. Really? But my ticket is for economy. Consider it an upgrade for moral courage, Captain Jenkins said with a wink. Mr. Grant, would you mind having a travel companion? Jordan smiled for the first time since the ordeal began. Not at all. She seems nice. As Chloe settled into seat 3B, she turned to Jordan. I'm so sorry about my mom. She's always been like this, but it's gotten worse lately. I'm just so sorry. It's not your fault, Jordan said simply. You can't control who your parents are. Trust me, I know about difficult family situations. As the plane pushed back from the gate for the second time, Renee appeared with the pre-flight service. Mr. Grant, Miss Thornton, can I get you something to drink before we take off? Could I have an orange juice, please? Jordan asked politely. Make that too, Chloe added softly. As they sipped their drinks, Chloe asked, Is it true? What my mom said about charity or diversity programs. Is that how you got your ticket? Jordan was quiet for a moment, then made a decision. My uncle bought it for me. He owns a robotics company. He started with nothing, built everything from scratch. He wanted me to see what's possible when you work hard and never give up. Chloe's eyes widened. Your uncle owns a company? That's amazing. My mom would die if she knew. She stopped, horrified. I'm sorry, that was a terrible thing to say. It's okay, Jordan said. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? Your mom judged me based on how I look, what I'm wearing. She never bothered to ask who I am, or where I'm going or why. She just decided I didn't belong. She does that to everyone, Chloe admitted. The housekeepers, the gardeners, anyone she thinks is beneath her. I hate it. I've tried to tell her, but she just says I'm too young to understand how the world works. Maybe she's the one who doesn't understand, Jordan suggested. As the plane lifted off, Captain Jenkins' voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I want to apologize again for the delay and thank you for your patience. I also want to say something else. In my 25 years of flying, I've learned that an airplane is a perfect metaphor for life. It doesn't matter if you're in first class or economy, we're all on the same journey. We all want to reach our destination safely. And when there's turbulence, we all feel it together. Today, one of our youngest passengers reminded us that dignity, respect, and grace under pressure are the real first-class qualities. Thank you, Mr. Grant, for that lesson. The cabin erupted in applause again. Jordan felt his cheeks burn, but also felt something else, pride. Not the boastful kind his mother warned against, but the quiet kind that came from knowing you'd done the right thing. The businessman from 2B turned around. Young man, I'm Patrick Scott, CEO of Pacific Tech Ventures. I was impressed by how you handled yourself. What did you say your uncle's company was called? Skytech Robotics, sir, Jordan replied. Mr. Scott's eyes widened. Samuel Grant is your uncle? I've been trying to get a meeting with him for months. His environmental drones are revolutionary. And now I see where he gets his values from. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He handed Jordan a business card. When you see your uncle, please give him this. Tell him Patrick Scott would love to discuss a partnership. And if you ever need an internship when you're older, you call me directly. Word spread through the first-class cabin. The elderly couple introduced themselves as Dr. and Mrs. Williams, retired professors from Emory University. If you're interested in engineering, young man, I still have connections in the department. We'd love to have someone with your character in our program someday. Even the flight crew stopped by to chat. The co-pilot, a young black woman named First Officer Davis, made a special trip back during cruise altitude. Hey, Jordan, she said with a warm smile. Captain Jenkins told me about you. I just wanted to say, when I was your age, someone told me I didn't belong in the cockpit either. Now I fly 737s across the country. Don't ever let anyone tell you where you don't belong, okay? Yes, ma'am, Jordan said, his eyes shining. Actually, I want to be an aerospace engineer. I want to design planes that are better for the environment. Then you keep studying hard, First Officer Davis said. The sky isn't the limit anymore, it's just the beginning. Maybe one day you'll design the planes I fly. As she walked away, Chloe turned to Jordan. This is amazing. All these people, they really respect you. They respect what happened, Jordan corrected. They respect people standing up to bullies. Your mom's probably done that to dozens of people who didn't have a Captain Jenkins to defend them. Chloe was quiet for a moment. I know I should defend her because she's my mother, but I'm glad she got kicked off. Is that terrible? No, Jordan said simply. It's honest. And it took courage to stay on the plane when she left. That was really brave. I didn't feel brave, Chloe admitted. I felt scared. But I thought about my grandmother, how she always taught me to be kind to everyone, how disappointed she'd be if she knew how Mom acts. I couldn't miss seeing her because of my mother's prejudice. They talked for the rest of the flight, two teenagers from different worlds finding common ground. Chloe told Jordan about her grandmother, a civil rights activist in the 1960s who would be horrified by her daughter's behavior. Jordan told Chloe about his brother Daniel, about the graduation ceremony, about dreams of changing the world through engineering. My mom would say that's unrealistic, Chloe said. She'd say people like... She stopped, ashamed. It's okay, Jordan said. You're not your mom. And dreams aren't unrealistic if you're willing to work for them. My uncle proved that. As the plane began its descent into Los Angeles, Renee appeared one more time. Mr. Grant, Miss Thornton, Captain Jenkins wanted me to give you these. She handed them each a pair of wings pins and a certificate. Jordan read his certificate. This certifies that Jordan Grant demonstrated exceptional grace under pressure and served as an example of dignity and character to all aboard Flight 872. Signed, Captain Laura Jenkins. I'm going to frame this, Jordan said softly. Me too, Chloe agreed, clutching her own certificate. As they prepared for landing, Jordan pulled out his phone and typed a message to his uncle. Uncle Sam, you were right. First class isn't about the seat. It's about how you carry yourself. Can't wait to tell you everything. P.S. Patrick Scott from Pacific Tech wants to meet you. I think I might have accidentally networked at 30,000 feet. Smiling face with smiling eyes, the response came quickly. That's my nephew. Proud of you, Jordy. Remember, eagles don't fly with pigeons, not because they're better, but because they're focused on different horizons. Keep soaring. The plane touched down smoothly at LAX. As passengers began gathering their belongings, many stopped to shake Jordan's hand or pat his shoulder. The elderly couple insisted on taking a photo with him. Mr. Scott reiterated his internship offer. Even passengers from economy, who'd heard about the incident through the flight attendant grapevine, stopped to express their support. Chloe hung back, uncertain. Jordan, I know this is weird, but could we maybe stay in touch? I don't really have many friends who understand what it's like to have a difficult family situation. And I think I need to learn how to be better than what I was taught. Jordan smiled and pulled out his phone. Of course. Maybe you can come to my brother's graduation party tomorrow. He'd love to meet someone who stood up to their own parent for what's right. That takes a special kind of courage. As they exchanged numbers, Captain Jenkins appeared one last time. Mr. Grant, Miss Thornton, it's been an honor having you both on board. Mr. Grant, I've been flying for 25 years, and I've never seen someone your age handle discrimination with such dignity. You're going places, young man, and I don't just mean Los Angeles. She turned to Chloe. And you, Miss Thornton, you made a difficult choice today. It's not easy to stand up to family, especially a parent. But you chose integrity over comfort. That's a rare quality. Don't lose it. As they walked up the jet bridge together, Jordan spotted a familiar figure waiting at the gate. Daniel stood there in his UCLA sweatshirt, his face breaking into a huge grin when he saw his little brother. Jordy, he called out, pulling him into a bear hug. How was your first-class flight? Educational, Jordan said with a small smile. Daniel, this is Chloe. She's a friend. Can she come to your graduation party tomorrow? Daniel looked between them, sensing a story. Any friend of my brother's is welcome. But I'm going to need to hear this whole story on the ride home. As they walked through the terminal, Jordan felt his phone buzz. It was a text from his mother with a link. Baby, someone just sent me this video. Are you okay? I'm so proud of how you handled yourself. That's my son. Call me when you can. Love, Mama. Jordan clicked the link and saw that videos of the incident were already spreading across social media. The headline read, Racist woman demands black child give up first-class seat, gets kicked off plane instead. The comments were pouring in by the thousands, praising Jordan's composure and Captain Jenkins' response. Oh no, Chloe said, looking at her own phone. It's everywhere. My mom's going to lose it when she sees this. Sure enough, within minutes, her phone began buzzing incessantly. She looked at the screen and winced. 17 missed calls. 32 texts. She's threatening to disown me, cancel my college fund, take away my car. She looked up at Jordan and Daniel. You know what? I don't care. For the first time in my life, I did the right thing instead of the easy thing. Daniel put a hand on her shoulder. That's huge. Really. Standing up to toxic family members is one of the hardest things anyone can do. You want to call your grandmother, let her know you made it. While Chloe stepped aside to make her call, Daniel pulled Jordan close. Okay, little brother, tell me everything. And I mean everything. As Jordan recounted the story, Daniel's expression shifted from shock to anger to pride. Man, Uncle Sam is going to flip when he hears this. You know he's been in that exact situation before, right? Back when he was first starting out, people constantly questioned whether he belonged in boardrooms, at tech conferences, in first-class cabins. He used to say the only way to prove them wrong was to succeed so thoroughly that they couldn't deny it anymore. I thought about that, Jordan admitted. When she was screaming at me, I thought about all the times Uncle Sam must have faced that kind of thing. And Mom too at the hospital. Some patients still request a different nurse when they see her. And yet they both keep showing up, keep doing excellent work, keep proving that excellence has no color, Daniel said. Just like you did today. Chloe returned, her eyes red but her smile genuine. My grandmother wants to meet you both. She said anyone who could inspire her granddaughter to finally stand up to her daughter must be special people. She also said she's been waiting 40 years for my mother to face consequences for her behavior. As they made their way to Daniel's beat-up Honda Civic in the parking garage, Jordan's phone rang. It was Uncle Samuel, FaceTiming from his office. There's my nephew. Samuel's voice boomed through the speaker. Jordan, I just saw the video. How are you holding up? I'm okay, Uncle Sam. It was intense. But Captain Jenkins was amazing, and the other passengers supported me and you handled it with class, Samuel interrupted. Real class. You know what I'm proudest of? You didn't stoop to her level. You didn't get angry or disrespectful. You just stated facts and held your ground. That's leadership, Jordy. I wanted to cry, Jordan admitted quietly. When she said I didn't deserve to be there, when she said people like you, it hurt. Of course it hurt, Samuel said gently. Those words were meant to hurt. But you know what? She showed everyone on that plane who she really was. And you showed them who you really are. Guess which one they'll remember with respect. He paused, then added, I've been in more boardrooms than I can count where someone looked at me the way that woman looked at you. You know what I learned? Their discomfort with my presence was never about me. It was about them, their insecurities, their small-mindedness. The best revenge is massive success, Jordy. And you're already on your way. Uncle Sam, Jordan said, remembering. Patrick Scott from Pacific Tech wants to meet with you. He gave me his card. Samuel's eyebrows shot up. Patrick Scott? I've been trying to connect with him for months. How did you? He laughed. Of course. My nephew's out here networking at 13. That's my boy. After they hung up, the trio drove through Los Angeles traffic, the city sprawling endlessly under the afternoon sun. Chloe stared out the window, processing everything that had happened. You know what the worst part is? She said suddenly. My mom's not going to learn from this. She's going to see herself as the victim. She'll tell all her friends that she was discriminated against, that the airline took the side of. Well, she'll use worse words than she did on the plane. And some of them will believe her. Maybe, Jordan agreed. But others will see the video. They'll see the truth. And maybe some of them will think twice before acting the same way. Change doesn't happen all at once. It happens one person at a time, one moment at a time. Like you changed me, Chloe said softly. I've watched my mom do this my whole life, and I've always been too scared to say anything. But seeing you stand up to her, seeing how you handled it, I don't want to be a bystander anymore. They arrived at Daniel's apartment near UCLA, a cramped two-bedroom he shared with 3 other students. The walls were covered with engineering diagrams and motivational quotes. One caught Chloe's eye. "Excellence is the best deterrent to racism or sexism." Oprah Winfrey. "That's been my motto through college," Daniel explained. "Every time someone doubted I belonged here, every time a study group forgot to invite me, every time a professor seemed surprised I understood the material, I just worked harder. Graduated summa cum laude. Can't argue with that GPA." As they settled in, ordering pizza and swapping stories, Jordan's phone continued to buzz with notifications. The video had gone viral, with celebrities, activists, and ordinary people sharing it with messages of support. Airlines were using it as a training example. News outlets wanted interviews. "Your famous little brother," Daniel teased. "The boy who kept his cool at 30,000 feet. But Jordan wasn't thinking about fame. He was thinking about the next day, about watching his brother walk across that stage in his cap and gown, about the promise of the future. He was thinking about Uncle Samuel's words. "Excellence is the best response." That evening, as Chloe's grandmother sent a car to pick her up, she hugged Jordan tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me that standing up for what's right is worth more than keeping the peace. I'll see you tomorrow at the graduation." "Wouldn't miss it," Jordan promised. As she left, Daniel threw an arm around his little brother's shoulders. "You know what? I was already proud to have you at my graduation. But now I get to tell everyone that my brother is the kid who stood up to racism with more grace than most adults could manage. That's better than any degree." That night, as Jordan lay on Daniel's couch, he thought about the day's events. He thought about Melissa Thornton, probably at home raging about the injustice she'd faced. He thought about Captain Jenkins, who'd shown him what real authority looked like. He thought about Chloe, brave enough to choose right over family loyalty. He thought about all the passengers who'd stood up for him, strangers who'd become allies in a moment of need. But mostly, he thought about his mother's words that morning. "You're first class because of what's in here," she'd said, tapping his chest. She was right. First class wasn't about the seat. It wasn't about the wider legroom or the better food or the real glasses instead of plastic cups. It was about how you treated people. It was about dignity in the face of hatred, grace under pressure, and the courage to stand up for yourself without tearing others down. The next morning, social media was still buzzing with the story. Melissa Thornton had been identified as a luxury real estate agent in Dallas, and her agency had already released a statement distancing themselves from her actions. Her professional Facebook page was flooded with negative reviews. Several of her high-profile clients had publicly announced they were taking their business elsewhere. But there was positive news too. Captain Jenkins was being celebrated as a hero, with aviation professionals praising her handling of the situation. The airline had released a statement supporting her actions and reaffirming their commitment to treating all passengers with dignity and respect. And Jordan Grant? The quiet boy from Atlanta, who just wanted to see his brother graduate? He'd become a symbol of grace under fire, of dignity in the face of discrimination. Scholarship offers were pouring in. Mentorship opportunities were being extended. Engineers and entrepreneurs were reaching out, inspired by his story and eager to support his dreams. At Daniel's graduation ceremony, as Jordan sat in the audience between Chloe and her grandmother, a dignified woman named Eleanor who'd insisted on buying them all lunch, he thought about journeys. Not just the flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles, but the longer journeys they were all on. Daniel's journey from a struggling student to a UCLA graduate with honors. Uncle Samuel's journey from a kid with nothing to a CEO changing the world. His mother's journey from poverty to saving lives every day. Even Chloe's journey from a bystander to someone willing to stand up for what's right. As Daniel walked across the stage to receive his diploma, Jordan stood and cheered louder than anyone. This was what excellence looked like. This was what perseverance looked like. This was what family looked like. After the ceremony, as they all gathered for photos, Eleanor pulled Jordan aside. "Young man, I want to thank you," she said quietly. "What happened yesterday was horrible, but it might have saved my granddaughter. She's been drowning in her mother's poison for years, and I've watched it slowly crushing her spirit. You showed her another way. You showed her that strength doesn't have to be cruel. She showed herself, Jordan replied. It takes real courage to stand up to your own family. I just held my ground. She chose to change her path. Eleanor smiled. Spoken like a true leader. Your uncle must be very proud. As if on cue, Jordan's phone rang. It was Samuel, calling from his car. Jordy. I'm 5 minutes out. Had to fly in for this. Couldn't miss my nephew's big day, both of you making headlines for excellence. When Samuel arrived, he swept Jordan into a hug that lifted him off his feet. There's my first-class nephew. You know the internet's going crazy over you, right? I've had 3 board members call to say how impressed they were with how you handled yourself. I just remembered what you and Mom taught me, Jordan said. That dignity is worth more than any seat on any plane. Samuel's eyes misted. That's right. And you know what? Patrick Scott called me this morning. We're meeting Monday to discuss a partnership that could revolutionize urban delivery systems. All because my nephew made such an impression that he handed you his card. You're already opening doors, Jordy. Keep walking through them. The celebration continued into the evening. Daniel, Jordan, Samuel, Chloe, and Eleanor, an unlikely group brought together by one moment of ugliness, transformed into something beautiful. They ate at a small family restaurant near campus, where the owner, recognizing Jordan from the viral video, refused to let them pay. Heroes eat free here, he said simply. And anyone who stands up to racism is a hero in my book. As the sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, Jordan thought about the flight home tomorrow. He'd be flying economy this time. Uncle Samuel had made the first-class booking as a special one-time treat. But that was okay. He'd learned that where you sit doesn't matter nearly as much as how you sit there. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Baby, I just watched your brother's graduation livestream. I'm so proud of both my boys. Can't wait to hear all about your adventure when you get home. Remember, you're first class no matter where you sit. Love, Mama. Jordan smiled, typing back. Thanks, Mama. I learned that lesson at 30,000 feet. Can't wait to tell you everything. Love you. As they walked back to Daniel's apartment, Chloe asked, Jordan, do you think my mom will ever understand what she did wrong? Jordan thought carefully before answering. I don't know. Some people never learn because they don't want to. They're too invested in their own view of the world to see it clearly. But that's not your responsibility. You can't control whether she changes. You can only control whether you do. I already have, Chloe said firmly. I'm never going to be a bystander again. And I'm never going to judge someone by their appearance or their clothes or their skin color. I'm going to judge them by their actions, their character, their heart. That's all any of us can do, Samuel said, joining the conversation. Change the world one person at a time, starting with ourselves. The next morning, as Jordan prepared to fly home, the impact of the incident continued to ripple outward. The airline announced new diversity and inclusion training for all staff, citing the incident as a catalyst for positive change. Captain Jenkins was invited to speak at aviation conferences about leadership and moral courage. The video was being used in schools and workplaces as a teaching tool about dignity, respect, and standing up to discrimination. But perhaps the most meaningful change was smaller, more personal. As Jordan boarded his economy flight home, he received a text from Chloe. Talked to my grandmother for hours last night. I'm going to spend the summer with her, learning about her civil rights work, understanding our family's better history. Thank you for showing me I had a choice. Friends forever. Forever, Jordan typed back. As the plane lifted off, carrying him back to Atlanta, back to his mother, back to his normal life, Jordan knew he was returning changed. Not because he'd flown first class, but because he'd learned that class, real class, had nothing to do with money or seats or status. Real class was his mother. working double shifts to save lives and raise good men. Real class was Daniel, studying until his eyes burned to build a better future. Real class was Uncle Samuel, never forgetting where he came from even as he soared to new heights. Real class was Captain Jenkins, standing up for what was right even when it was easier to look away. Real class was Chloe, choosing integrity over family pressure. And maybe, just maybe, real class was a 13-year-old boy who'd faced hatred with dignity, who'd responded to cruelty with quiet strength, who'd shown an entire plane full of people that character couldn't be bought or sold. It could only be demonstrated. The next morning, social media was still buzzing with the story. Melissa Thornton had been identified as a luxury real estate agent in Dallas, and her agency had already released a statement distancing themselves from her actions. Her professional Facebook page was flooded with negative reviews. Several of her high-profile clients had publicly announced they were taking their business elsewhere. But there was positive news too. Captain Jenkins was being celebrated as a hero, with aviation professionals praising her handling of the situation. The airline had released a statement supporting her actions and reaffirming their commitment to treating all passengers with dignity and respect. And Jordan Grant? The quiet boy from Atlanta, who just wanted to see his brother graduate? He'd become a symbol of grace under fire, of dignity in the face of discrimination. Scholarship offers were pouring in. Mentorship opportunities were being extended. Engineers and entrepreneurs were reaching out, inspired by his story and eager to support his dreams. At Daniel's graduation ceremony, as Jordan sat in the audience between Chloe and her grandmother, a dignified woman named Eleanor who'd insisted on buying them all lunch, he thought about journeys. Not just the flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles, but the longer journeys they were all on. Daniel's journey from a struggling student to a UCLA graduate with honors. Uncle Samuel's journey from a kid with nothing to a CEO changing the world. His mother's journey from poverty to saving lives every day. Even Chloe's journey from a bystander to someone willing to stand up for what's right. As Daniel walked across the stage to receive his diploma, Jordan stood and cheered louder than anyone. This was what excellence looked like. This was what perseverance looked like. This was what family looked like. After the ceremony, as they all gathered for photos, Eleanor pulled Jordan aside. "Young man, I want to thank you," she said quietly. "What happened yesterday was horrible, but it might have saved my granddaughter. She's been drowning in her mother's poison for years, and I've watched it slowly crushing her spirit. You showed her another way. You showed her that strength doesn't have to be cruel." "She showed herself," Jordan replied. "It takes real courage to stand up to your own family. I just held my ground. She chose to change her path." Eleanor smiled. "Spoken like a true leader. Your uncle must be very proud." As if on cue, Jordan's phone rang. It was Samuel, calling from his car. "Jordy, I'm 5 minutes out. Had to fly in for this. Couldn't miss my nephew's big day, both of you making headlines for excellence." When Samuel arrived, he swept Jordan into a hug that lifted him off his feet. "There's my first-class nephew. You know the internet's going crazy over you, right? I've had 3 board members call to say how impressed they were with how you handled yourself." "I just remembered what you and Mom taught me," Jordan said. "That dignity is worth more than any seat on any plane." Samuel's eyes misted. "That's right. And you know what? Patrick Scott called me this morning. We're meeting Monday to discuss a partnership that could revolutionize urban delivery systems. All because my nephew made such an impression that he handed you his card. You're already opening doors, Jordy. Keep walking through them." The celebration continued into the evening. Daniel, Jordan, Samuel, Chloe, and Eleanor, an unlikely group brought together by one moment of ugliness, transformed into something beautiful. They ate at a small family restaurant near campus, where the owner, recognizing Jordan from the viral video, refused to let them pay. "Heroes eat free here," he said simply. "And anyone who stands up to racism is a hero in my book." As the sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Jordan thought about the flight home tomorrow. He'd be flying economy this time. Uncle Samuel had made the first-class booking as a special one-time treat. But that was okay. He'd learned that where you sit doesn't matter nearly as much as how you sit there. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Baby, I just watched your brother's graduation livestream. I'm so proud of both my boys. Can't wait to hear all about your adventure when you get home. Remember, you're first class no matter where you sit. Love, Mama." Jordan smiled, typing back. "Thanks, Mama. I learned that lesson at 30,000 feet. Can't wait to tell you everything. Love you." As they walked back to Daniel's apartment, Chloe asked, "Jordan, do you think my mom will ever understand what she did wrong?" Jordan thought carefully before answering. "I don't know. Some people never learn because they don't want to. They're too invested in their own view of the world to see it clearly. But that's not your responsibility. You can't control whether she changes. You can only control whether you do." "I already have," Chloe said firmly. "I'm never going to be a bystander again. And I'm never going to judge someone by their appearance or their clothes or their skin color. I'm going to judge them by their actions, their character, their heart." "That's all any of us can do," Samuel said, joining the conversation. "Change the world one person at a time, starting with ourselves." The next morning, as Jordan prepared to fly home, the impact of the incident continued to ripple outward. The airline announced new diversity and inclusion training for all staff, citing the incident as a catalyst for positive change. Captain Jenkins was invited to speak at aviation conferences about leadership and moral courage. The video was being used in schools and workplaces as a teaching tool about dignity, respect, and standing up to discrimination. But perhaps the most meaningful change was smaller, more personal. As Jordan boarded his economy flight home, he received a text from Chloe. "Talked to my grandmother for hours last night. I'm going to spend the summer with her, learning about her civil rights work, understanding our family's better history. Thank you for showing me I had a choice. Friends forever." "Forever," Jordan typed back. As the plane lifted off, carrying him back to Atlanta, back to his mother, back to his normal life, Jordan knew he was returning changed. Not because he'd flown first class, but because he'd learned that class, real class, had nothing to do with money or seats or status. Real class was his mother, working double shifts to save lives and raise good men. Real class was Daniel, studying until his eyes burned to build a better future. Real class was Uncle Samuel, never forgetting where he came from even as he soared to new heights. Real class was Captain Jenkins, standing up for what was right even when it was easier to look away. Real class was Chloe, choosing integrity over family pressure. And maybe, just maybe, real class was a 13-year-old boy who'd faced hatred with dignity, who'd responded to cruelty with quiet strength, who'd shown an entire plane full of people that character couldn't be bought or sold. It could only be demonstrated. As Jordan opened his book about the Wright brothers, finding his place where he'd left off, he smiled. Orville and Wilbur had dreamed of flight when everyone said it was impossible. They'd faced ridicule, failure, and disbelief. But they'd persevered, and they'd changed the world. Maybe that's what first class really meant. Not where you sat, but how high you dared to dream and how hard you worked to make those dreams soar. The plane climbed higher, leaving Los Angeles behind, carrying Jordan home. But he wasn't the same boy who'd left Atlanta just 2 days ago. He was someone who'd been tested and hadn't broken. Someone who'd faced prejudice and responded with principle. Someone who'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be made small. His mother was waiting at baggage claim, even though he only had his backpack. She took one look at him and pulled him into her arms. "My baby," she whispered. "I'm so proud of you." "I'm proud of me too, Mama," Jordan said softly. "For the first time, I really understand what you mean about knowing my worth." As they drove home through familiar streets, Jordan told her everything. About Melissa's cruelty, Captain Jenkins' strength, Chloe's courage, the support of strangers. Patricia listened, her hands tightening on the steering wheel at the hard parts, her eyes shining with pride at the rest. "You know what this means, don't you?" she said as they pulled into their apartment complex. "You're going to face more Melissa Thorntons in your life. People who think they can diminish you, who think they can make you small. But now you know the secret." "What's that, Mama?" "They only have the power you give them. And you, my beautiful boy, you gave her nothing. You kept all your power for yourself. That's how we win, baby. Not by fighting on their level, but by rising above it." That night, as Jordan lay in his own bed, in his own room, with his first-class wings pinned to his bulletin board, next to his honor roll certificates and pictures of his family, he thought about the future. He thought about the planes he'd design one day, planes that would fly cleaner and quieter, planes that would connect people across distances and differences. But mostly he thought about the lesson he'd learned at 30,000 feet, that dignity was its own altitude, that grace was its own wings, and that no one could ground a spirit that was determined to soar. Somewhere in Dallas, Melissa Thornton was dealing with the consequences of her actions. Lost clients, public shame, a daughter who'd chosen conscience over comfort. Somewhere in Los Angeles, Chloe was packing for a summer with her grandmother, ready to learn about the better angels of her family's history. Somewhere in the sky, Captain Laura Jenkins was flying another plane full of passengers, carrying with her the satisfaction of knowing she'd stood on the right side of history. And in a modest apartment in Atlanta, a 13-year-old boy named Jordan Grant was already dreaming of his next flight. Not because of where he'd sit, but because of where he was going. His journey had just begun, and he was ready to soar. The story of Flight 872 would be told and retold, shared in classrooms and boardrooms, in churches and community centers. It would inspire other young people to stand tall in the face of prejudice. It would remind adults that courage has no age limit. It would prove that sometimes, the most powerful response to hatred is dignity, and the strongest statement you can make is simply refusing to be diminished. But for Jordan, it wasn't about being a symbol or a viral sensation. It was about something simpler and more profound, the knowledge that he belonged wherever his dreams and hard work could take him. The sky wasn't the limit, it was just the beginning. As he drifted off to sleep, Jordan's last thought was of something Uncle Samuel had told him years ago. "They can't stop you from flying, Jordy. They can only make you stronger for the journey." And he was ready for whatever journey came next, first class all the way, not in his seat, but in his spirit. 6 months later, the auditorium at Jordan's middle school was packed. Parents, students, and teachers filled every seat, with more standing along the walls. At the podium, a familiar figure adjusted the microphone. "Good evening," Captain Laura Jenkins began, her voice carrying the same authority it had shown on Flight 872. "I'm here tonight to present a special award, but first, I want to tell you a story about courage." She recounted the events of that day, though most in the audience already knew them. The video had become legendary at the school, and Jordan had tried his best to return to normal life despite his newfound recognition. "But this isn't just about one incident," Captain Jenkins continued. "It's about what Jordan Grant has done since. Using his platform to speak about dignity and respect. Tutoring struggling students. Starting an aerospace club to inspire other young people to reach for the sky. Showing us all that character isn't about a single moment, it's about how you live every day." She turned to where Jordan sat with his family, his mother, Daniel, and Uncle Samuel, who'd flown in for the occasion. "Jordan Grant, would you please come forward?" As Jordan walked to the stage, the audience erupted in applause. He was taller now, his voice a bit deeper, but his humble smile remained the same. Captain Jenkins handed him a plaque. "The Airlines for America Foundation is proud to present you with our first annual Young Leader in Aviation Award, along with a full scholarship to any aerospace engineering program in the country when you're ready for college." Jordan's eyes widened. "Captain Jenkins, thank you. This is incredible." "You earned it," she said simply. "Not just through that one day, but through every day since. You showed us that leadership isn't about age or position, it's about character. As Jordan returned to his seat, clutching the award, he caught sight of someone in the back of the auditorium. Chloe Thornton stood there with her grandmother Eleanor, both beaming with pride. She gave him a thumbs up, and he grinned back. After the ceremony, as people mingled and offered congratulations, Chloe made her way over. "Hey, first class," she teased. "Nice award." "Thanks," Jordan said. "How's your mom?" Chloe's expression grew thoughtful. "She's trying. After losing most of her clients and going through sensitivity training, she's starting to question things. It's slow, but my grandmother says any progress is good progress. She actually asked about you the other day, wanted to know if you were doing okay." "That's unexpected," Jordan said carefully. "Yeah. I think seeing the whole world condemn her behavior was a wake-up call. She's got a long way to go, but maybe there's hope. My grandmother says redemption is always possible for those willing to do the work." Uncle Samuel joined them, his presence commanding attention even in a crowded room. "Chloe, good to see you again. How's the internship at the Civil Rights Museum?" "Amazing," Chloe beamed. "I'm learning so much about the real history of the movement. My grandmother's stories are incredible. Did you know she was at the March on Washington?" "Your grandmother is a treasure," Samuel said warmly. "And you're carrying on her legacy by choosing justice over comfort. That's not easy when it means standing up to family." As the evening wound down, Jordan found himself outside, looking up at the stars. His mother found him there. "Penny for your thoughts, baby?" "Just thinking about how different everything is now," Jordan said. 6 months ago, I was just a kid trying to surprise his brother. Now there are scholarship offers, speaking invitations, people calling me a role model. It's a lot." Patricia put her arm around him. "You know what hasn't changed? You're still my sweet boy who helps neighbors and studies hard and dreams big. Fame is just noise, Jordan. Character is what matters when the noise dies down." "I know, Mama. I want to use this platform right. To help other kids who face what I faced. To show them they don't have to accept being made small." "Then that's what you'll do," she said simply. "One speech, one tutoring session, one act of kindness at a time. That's how change happens." A plane passed overhead, its lights blinking in the darkness. Jordan watched it arc across the sky, remembering his own flight, remembering the moment when he'd had to choose between shrinking and standing tall. "You know what the best part is?" he said suddenly. "What's that, baby?" "I'm not afraid anymore. Not of people like Melissa Thornton, not of spaces where people think I don't belong, not of dreams that seem too big. That flight taught me that the only person who can ground me is me." Patricia squeezed him tighter. "That's my first-class boy. Now come on, Uncle Samuel's taking us all to dinner to celebrate. And you know he's going to want to hear your ideas for that aerospace club." As they walked back inside, Jordan took one last look at the sky. Somewhere up there, planes were carrying people to new destinations, new opportunities, new lives. And someday, if he worked hard enough and stayed true to himself, those planes might be ones he designed. Cleaner, quieter, better for the world. But that was the future. For now, he was content to be Jordan Grant, the boy who'd learned at 30,000 feet that dignity was the highest altitude of all. Inside, surrounded by family and friends, teachers and supporters, Jordan felt the truth of what Captain Jenkins had said on that fateful day. Real class isn't printed on your ticket, it's written in your character. And his character, tested by fire and strengthened by support, was ready for whatever journey came next. The boy who'd kept his composure in first class had discovered something more valuable than any seat assignment. He'd discovered that no one could define his worth but himself. And that discovery would carry him higher than any plane ever could. As Uncle Samuel raised a toast at dinner that night, his words echoed what they all felt. To Jordan, who reminded us all that excellence isn't about where you sit, it's about how you rise. And Jordan Grant, 13 years old, straight-A student, future aerospace engineer, and defender of dignity, was just getting started on his ascent. The sky was no longer the limit. It was just the beginning.